Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review series for the 28th of December, or I'm sorry, 28th of March, 1992. We are going backwards now at this point. This is technically not the WCW Saturday Night because the name change doesn't happen until the 4-4 show, which we started here, but we're going to go backwards. The Saturday night program for this time period. Anyway, Van Hammer is out first, and he is taking on none other than enhancement talent, um, uh, Randy Starr with Slingshot Suplex. After the bout, Eric Bischoff conducts a ringside interview with Hammer regarding his giving back to the community. Moments later, JT Southern interrupts playing the guitar and asking whether Hammer can actually play his own guitar. Actually, I love this time period in WCW for sure. Always been something I enjoyed a great deal, and the Star is kind of goofy. Van Hammer has such an amazing look at the time. I love this period just because it's much more mat wrestling based than your average WWF show at the time, and worth checking out. Basically, slingshot suplex about 2 minutes into this gives Van Hammer a victory, and it's a super basic deal. A couple of shots um, JT stands for just tripping or something like that, or just trying, is what Van Hammer says, and that feud obviously doesn't go very well there. Next match up here in the 1992 version of WCW is the um, Firebreaker Chip and Todd champion defeating Bob Cook and Chris Sullivan 513 champion Vince Cook following a flying corkscrew elbow uh, during the bout. The announcement that Jesse Ventura is going to join the broadcast team the following week is mentioned, so that's a good way for Jesse to come in. Um, Todd Champion and Firebreaker Chip, not exactly the best of teams at the time. Side headlock takeovers and other basic things, a couple of snap suplex, and there's good tag team work between the two of them, but nothing in this match is really worth seeing. It's a very basic babyface gimmick related match. Then we go to the WCW magazine area, and the Steiner brothers are on the cover of the magazine. There is an interview with the wonder that is Nikita Koloff. Koloff basically saying he's back in WCW to talk to one person, and he's not going to comment on why he's there until he talks to that one person. That person implied is Sting, but it's never actually said in the interview. Also, the hanging of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, which, if you haven't seen the Steamboat Rude stuff at the time, the Super Brawl 2 and beyond, it's certainly worth checking out. Rick Steiner cut the promo talking about the Steiners fearing nobody. Scott Steiner, I believe, out of action at this point with some various challenges. Dustin Rhodes up next. Dustin Rhodes here in 1992, still looking a little green, although not as much as he had earlier before. Rhodes facing off against enhancement talent here in the form of um, Greg Sawyer. Beats him with a bulldog in 239. Tom Zink does guest commentary for the bout, and later against Terrence Taylor, facing off against Taylor and Greg Valentine. That comes later, but I mean the Rhodes match here, super basic, nothing necessarily worth anybody having to write home about. Rhodes gets a couple drop kicks after a couple arm drags and arm bars, super basic stuff, and ultimately Rhodes gets the bulldog and the victory going forward here. And that bulldog is something he's known for the next several years. Hype piece for Vader. Vader is coming into the promotion on a more regular basis, laying Sting out and laying out many others as well. Vader basically saying no one's going to stop him. They do some highlights there. Vader being set up to be Sting's, I don't know that I'd say first challenger, but one of the first challengers already here. Cactus Jack, a.k.a. Mick Foley. Up next, enhancement talent match here for Foley. Foley just coming back to the promotion a couple months before after his 1991 run, basically teaming up with Abdullah the Butcher here. They don't really have a huge plan for him at the time, although by June of this year, he has my favorite Sting match of all time, which is the Sting Cactus Jack match that at Beach Brawl. Cactus pins Dave Poston 258 with a double arm DDT, following an elbow drop off the apron to the floor. During the bout, Cactus would face Ron Simmons the 12th of April at the Omni. Simmons, of course, by August of same year, when Bill Watts comes in, ends up challenging and winning the World Championship for a little bit. Cactus punch kick. The flying elbow off the apron at the time, a super basic thing. Cactus talks about being a little strange, a little off, but he's okay with that, and he doesn't really care. The alliance with Abdullah the Butcher, I don't know that it's completely done, but ending here as he starts to go more towards his own. Next up, we've got Terry Taylor and the Z-Man, a bit more of a traditionalized wrestling match here. Taylor and the Z-Man are, I don't know that I'd say regular rivals, but they've been rivals a little bit here. Actually, before we get there, though, we do have U.S. Tag Team Champion Sharon Taylor defeating Tom Zink in that one-on-one match. And, of course, the U.S. Tag Team Champions are, at this point, Taylor and Greg Valentine. Interesting team at the time. I enjoyed them just because they did a lot of heels. A lot of heel work. Believe it or not, Taylor does a good bit of offensive maneuvers. Actually, hits a Gonzo-style bomb, and Taylor gets frustrated early in the match. This match is worth, if you like old school wrestling, if you like when guys could actually sell, then this is worth going out of your way to see. Still stands up all these years later behind things. Zink does eventually get a comeback with some drop kicks under the chin. Zink gets a victory with a cross body, and Marcus Bagwell is the one that gives Zink a bit of a foray there. Greg Valentine tries to interfere on behalf of Terry Taylor before we get there, and Dusty Rhodes tells people not to do drugs. Dusty Rhodes also endorses his son in a promo here. Johnny B. Bad, relatively new in the area. Don't know that he's turned babyface yet. Bad, been around since 1991, doing the Bad Bastard Confetti gimmick at the time, and an enhancement match for Johnny B. Bad here, leading to a opportunity for him, and ultimately, we kind of move to Johnny B. Bad defeating Tracy Smothers. Smothers, one of the guys that you look back at, and it's really kind of sad that wrestling never treated Tracy Smothers a bit better. Of course, Johnny B. Bad doing a bit of the boxer gimmick at the time, and kind of does some really basic things. Smothers slowing him down, punches, kicks, basic maneuvers. Again, a match worth going out of your way to see if you enjoy. Kind of a decent storytelling match. Big back body drop by Tracy Smothers. Smothers, such an amazing seller. Just a guy who can really get places if he needs to. Big power slam by Johnny B. Bad, and get where he can get there. Certainly a super basic series here, and Johnny B. Bad, obviously a guy who manages to, gets a kick into the midsection of his adversary, and he gets a couple of hard shots, kind of doing the boxer wrestler gimmick at the same time. Not exactly the best of situations. Gets the top rope sunset flip and the victory. Scotty Flamingo talks about cats and kittens and being a hipster, basically wearing a top hat. Paulie dangerously cuts an amazing promo worth going out of your way to see. Rick Rude kind of talks about being number one contender to Sting, but also talks about wanting to go at it with Sting, and also talking about Ricky Steamboat coming up as well, and how Steamboat may get injured before he gets his hands on Rude again post the Super Brawl 2 about a month later show. We then go to the tag team match, which doesn't really go all that well here in terms of just an awkward six-man, as it were. We go to Mr. Hughes, Vinny, and Vinny Vegas versus um, various other kind of highlights here. Needless to say, kind of have the Arn Anderson, Steve Austin, and Barry Windham versus Brad Armstrong and others. And again, I mean, it's not really a bad match. The Dangerous Alliance, of course, at their peak. The Dangerous Alliance, a team that you got to take seriously for the sake of the time frame. Brad Armstrong, phenomenal at the time. Never really got over the way he could have, should have, would have in a different environment for sure. But Armstrong kind of comes out with Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson, phenomenal, worth checking out. The Junkyard Dog tags in and gets some offense on Steve Austin, as does PN News. PN News, of course, doing the yo baby, yo thing, and holding on to a bear hug. Austin at this time doing kind of the TV champion thing. The Junkyard Dog looks to be in horrific shape, just looking like, well, fat and flabby. And again, we go back to the bear hug by PN News midway through. PN News takes the majority of the match, actually. I think that has more to do with the fact that Junkyard Dog is supposed to come in to clean house. Junkyard Dog and Steve Austin kind of do have a basic exchange. Austin comes back with some punches, kicks. Then Anderson comes back in. Anderson and Brad Armstrong coming at it again. Armstrong trying to get Anderson to fall to the sunset. Flip takes a couple times, finally does. Falls, though, in the wrong corner and a tag off. Anderson comes back in to a cleaning house. PN News. Longer match than this needs to be. Just a six-man to fill space, actually. It doesn't ultimately lead anywhere, long-term storyline-wise. Clothesline in the corner, basic maneuvers, and PN News hits a belly-to-belly suplex on Arn Anderson. Almost beats him in the middle, but Bobby Eaton on the outside coming in, hitting the knee to the top of the head and giving the Dangerous Alliance some degree of victory here. We then go to Rick Rude and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. Bagwell, a relative newcomer in the area at the time, simplistic though it is, and it's clear that Bagwell doesn't really care what Rude's history is. Rude, of course, U.S. champion. Rude taking the arm of Bagwell, taking him back to the corner, and they basically work really basic maneuvers. Good selling here. Rude keeping Bagwell under control early, and Rick Rude, of course, your U.S. champion, also managed by none other than Paul E. Dangerously at the time. The Dangerous Alliance, a good thing. Rude at one point does get a pile driver, which back then is a finish. Wish it still was today, but needless to say, men and women don't really care about selling these days. Anyhow, we go to the right up to the end of the program, which is kind of amazing if you think about how continual we are, and Rick Rude does get your victory here. Shoots things off, and Ricky Steamboat comes out, and Steamboat interferes, and Steamboat and Rude brawl to close the show. We'll be back with more right after this.